Hello everyone, my name is Tobia Di Pisa and I'm here today to introduce MapStore, the highly modular open source WebGIS framework developed by GeoSolutions to securely create, manage and share maps, dashboards and geostories on the web. Well, first of all, let's go through the main online references where you can find effectively the main entry points of the project and all the information you need about it. The project is hosted in a public GitHub repository that is reachable also from the top left corner of the default MapStore landing page here. Where you have the code base of the application, of course, the information and details about each MapStore release delivered, together with relevant links and assets, as well as the main high-level information well organized in a README file that effectively collects all the most relevant links involving the project itself. Like, for example, a quick start guide, of course, information about the code license, links to reach the GeoSolutions online demo instances, and of course links to get in touch with the communities of both users and developers, as well as the contributing rules here that code contributors have to respect to integrate their work to the MapStore open source project. Well, the online documentation is of course one of the most important resources linked here in the README file, on top of the README file to be precise. And here you can find both user and developer guides and then browse different documentation versions corresponding to most recent releases and working stable branches. And you can reach also other online resources here on top right to consult the framework and JavaScript APIs, as well as the useful plugins documentation that provides effectively you with all the updated information on the available configuration properties for each plugin offered by MapStore. So let's go back to the MapStore landing page so that I can describe and introduce main functionalities and tools it offers. The MapStore homepage basically provides the catalog of resources between maps, dashboards and geostories that have been created by MapStore users. The section on top here provides a search tool that you can use to type the name of resource, the name of the resource you are looking for. So, for example, demo. Okay, all the contents in the page are filtered accordingly. Okay. There is also an advanced tool here that you can use to find context maps. Application context represents a way admin users have in MapStore to build and configure customized WebGIS viewers and organize maps by typology, but we will talk about this later during the training. With a landing page, users have also the possibility to put created resources independently on the type in a list of featured ones here. Every authenticated user can do that from the UI, so that all personal content as well as resources shared with other users can be easily found in a list of favorite maps, dashboards and geostories. Okay, the contents section below provides effectively the catalog of all MapStore resources created by users, uh, also in favorite list or not. Uh, there are three tabs to organize resources by typology between maps, dashboards, and geostories. Now I'm anonymous user, and what I can do with MapStore is only to see public resources shared by users with everyone, and I can share them online with a dedicated share button present on each card in the UI, precisely this one. So I can share. There are many sharing options with a direct link, QR code, social links, and snippets to embed the. In that case, it is a map. The map in third-party websites, or using through the iframe, or using the framework APIs. Um, as you can see, each resource in the MapStore landing page is identified by an icon here in the bottom left corner of each card that effectively indicates the typology of the resource itself. In that case, it is a map. In this case, it is a dashboard, and in this case, it is a geostory. With the omnibar on top here, I have useful links to reach the landing page sections, and can I change the language of the application? Okay, now I have selected Italian. Let's switch back to English, and I can log in with a registered user. Okay. So let's authenticate with an admin user so that we will have all the functionalities available, and we can go through them. Well, now that we are authenticated as an admin user, we have many other options and tools activated in the UI, in the MapStore UI. On a side here, we have buttons to create new resources for maps, dashboards, and geostories. For maps in particular, it is possible to choose here from the drop-down if the map should be created from a default basically map viewer, or from another existing application context. Here a panel opens providing the list of all application contexts created and available, so that it is possible to select one of them and base the newly created map on it. Okay. On another side, more tools are available now on each resource card, okay, in the list, in the catalog, so that it is possible to manage contents according to the user role. Okay, so you can delete a resource, you can share it as I shown before, you can put it in the favorite list, and you can manage its properties. Okay, that means through a dedicated panel you can configure, you can set up the thumbnail, the name of the resource, the description. You can add details. I will show you later. And you can set up permissions for this map. Okay, so you can decide which group of users can only view that specific resource, or it can also edit it. Okay. On the top right corner, a few more options are now also available, so that I can see the details corresponding to the user I logged in with. Okay, so I can see the name, the role, the associated email, and a few more metadata, including the groups where the user is belonging to. Okay, and I can access other administrative sections to manage user accounts effectively, and users groups and other application contexts basically. Now I'm administrator and I can do all I want, but it is necessary to effectively explain how roles and related permissions are working in MapStore, I think. So as I said before, as anonymous user, I can only see and access public resources shared by MapStore users with everyone and share them online. As authenticated user, I can create my private resources and do whatever I want with them, including sharing them with other groups of MapStore users, and decided at the same time if they can only access a resource like a map, for example, in read-only mode, or if they can also save changes on it. That's something I have shown before when I have opened the edit properties. Okay, all these options and group permissions can be configured there. Okay, as an admin user, I have effectively full control of all aspects and do everything I want with all resources, including changing permissions on resources created by other users, managing accounts and user groups through these administrative sections here, so that here you can manage both users and groups in the same administrative sections, and I can search the desired user, for example, and I can see directly in the card the associated groups to that user. I can check the status if it is enabled or not. I can manage his properties, okay? So change the password, change the role between user and admin. I can change the metadata associated to the user. I can include this user to existing groups, okay? And I can manage effectively also groups, so creating new groups and managing existing groups with a similar UI to manage users belonging to the group, groups metadata, and things like that. Okay. Okay, so now that we have provided an overview of the MapStore homepage, let's do together a tour of the MapStore map viewer to get familiar with the user interface and provided tools at an high level. So let's open, for example, one of the existing maps, the demo one here in favorite. Okay, simply click on the card, the map is open. Okay, so the UI presents various areas where tools are organized. So on the left side of the user interface, you have the side panel, okay, where it is possible to organize layers, okay, and layer groups, okay. So various options are already available in the table of contents, so that you can, for example, show and hide layers. You can manage the order of layers, I mean, with the drag and drop functionality, okay, and you can see the legend of a layer, okay, and you can as you can see, manage the opacity of the layer itself. Okay, so there are already many high-level options available, and by default there is a toolbar here for creating and for adding new layers and new groups. Okay, layers in the table of content can be searched. Okay, so for example, I'm looking for the states layer. When I select it, many options in the tools are activated. Okay, so that new tools are effectively available, and you can use them for the specific layer selected. Okay, so starting from the left, you can zoom to the extent of the layer. Okay, you can manage the layer settings. So let's go through the available option quickly just to provide an overview. You can manage general settings like the title that should be visualized in the table of content for the layer. You can manage translations for each basically language supported and configured. Okay, you can manage then other kind of metadata like the description, the associated group in the table of content for the layer, the tooltip placement, and things like that. Then we have the display option, okay, so that you can manage the format on which the layer should be visualized in map. You can choose the tile size, the opacity, the scale, visibility limits, and a few more other options, visibility options to manage localized styles, caching options, transparency, and things like that. The most important thing that should be mentioned here is effectively that all of these options are working in respect, I mean, of the OGC standards. Okay, in this case we have selected a WMS layer coming from GeoServer, and in that specific case we have also some vendor options available here in the UI, so that it is possible effectively to control in the UI also vendor options specific of GeoServer, like the cache options and things like that. Okay, all the other ones are effectively OGC standards, and so proper of all WMS layers that are respecting that standard. Indeed, in this display tab, you can also manage the legend visibility. So you can have a preview of the legend, and you can manage a few specific options of the legend, like width and date. Through the layer setting, it is also possible to manage the style of the layer. So if you have enough permission to do that, you can effectively create new styles from the MapStore UI, and then you can also select effectively the style that should be used, okay, to visualize the layer in the map. Okay, so for example, you can change effectively the style by selecting it from the list. Okay. The last tab instead is the one dedicated to the feature info, effectively to the identify configuration specific for this layer, so that you have the ability to choose on which format the identify information should be visualized. Okay, there are many options, so this tool effectively provides you the ability to finally control the identify settings for that specific layer. So you can effectively disable identify for this layer. You can choose other formats available like text, HTML, and properties, which is basically use the application JSON format, and it shows the identify information as reported here in the preview, okay? Because when you select a format, there is also a preview that show you what is the default format that you can see in the identify result. It is of course an example, okay, but it is really useful. There is also another option that allow you to effectively configure a template so that you can set up what should be the presentation form, okay, for your identify information. It is a really simple tool that through the WYSIWYG allow you to type with a specific syntax how you want to present your information, your identify information retrieved by the server. Against in respect with the OGC standards. So let's go back now to the table of content, okay, cleaning up the search field. The other tools available when you select a layer in table of content are the layer filter, okay, so that you can effectively filter the layer. You can set up, you can configure a generic filter that should be always applied to the layer when it is visualized on the map. As you can see here, a filter has already been configured, okay? So you have the ability to activate or deactivate the filter simply clicking on the icon here, okay? And if you open the filter layer, clicking on the button present in the table of content toolbar, you can see effectively how the filter is configured. In this case, I mean, we have only a simple filter based on attribute, okay? As you can see, you can define more filter for more attributes. You can choose the attributes of the layer, the operator that need to be used, and the value, okay? You can filter by area of interest. There are many options, so you can filter by viewport, you can define a rectangle on the map, a circle, a polygon, and you can also choose the operation type that should be applied on that defined geometry that represents the area of interest. Or you can also filter by another layer, okay? That's an option specific of GeoServer, okay? That is effectively provide cross-layer filtering operation, so that you can, in that case, filter states, okay, using geometries from another layer in the map, okay. So let's go back again. Let's deactivate the filter, and then the other tool is the attribute table. Okay, if you click on this, a WFS request is performed by MapStore in order to present you all the attributes information, okay, involving the layer. Okay, all the records are reported here in the table, and you have many options available because I mean, you can effectively browse data using the attribute table, and for example zoom on each state, for example, okay. So you can zoom on each layer. You can use effectively the quick filter provided here on the attribute table header, okay, to filter records in the table, okay, simply by typing the result that you want to match. So for example, okay, the table is automatically filtered, or for example you want to filter by sub-region, and so you can see all the result according to your filter. Okay, so quick filters here are effectively supporting different kind of filter types depending also on the data type. Okay, for the specific attribute you are filtering on. Okay, so it can be dates, expressions for attributes of type number, or simple strings, as I have shown before, things like that. Okay, so there are also options here in the attribute table that allow you to also filter by interacting directly with the map. So for example, if you click on that icon here, you can, and then you click on the map, the attribute table is automatically filtered, showing the features that you have in the position of the click. Okay, so you can also use all the hints reported here in the tooltip to understand how you can filter by area. So for example, if you activate this and then you can click Alt on Windows and you drag with the mouse, you can define the area that need to be used to filter all records present in that area of interest. Okay, and the table is updated accordingly. Okay, so let's deactivate now this filter, and let's zoom a little bit. And as you can see, we have 49 items, and you can click here on this other button to effectively apply another kind of filter that is using effectively the viewport, okay, to filter layer features accordingly. As you can see, when I pan the map, okay, the number of elements in the table of content are changing accordingly. Okay, so that only the states, in this case only the features that are visible in the viewport, are effectively loaded in the attribute table. Okay, then through the attribute table you can also manage other tools, like you can basically download the data. Okay, you have many options. This tool is working again on top of the OGC standards, and you can choose the service that you want to use, okay, to download data. There are many options here because you can decide to download data from the WFS service, so that you can, as soon as you have selected the service, you can choose the format you want for the downloaded data. You can choose the coordinate reference system from the ones that you have effectively configured in MapStore. By default, these ones are the default ones, basically. Or you can choose the WPS service, so that a preventive check is performed by MapStore to check if a specific extension of GeoServer, the WPS1 and the WPS download extension are effectively installed in that GeoServer instance the layer is belonging to. And if it is effectively present, that option is activated so that the user can choose it. And as soon as you select it, you can effectively configure your export that will work effectively asynchronously. Okay, so you can select the available format supported by the WPS process, the coordinate reference system, and many other options like cropping the data set to the current viewport, or use the filter that you have configured, as we have seen before, through the layer filter tool. Okay, as soon as you select, for example, a format, and you choose a coordinate reference system, for example, you want to use the configured layer filter, you click on export, and the layer is effectively, the state of the download is effectively present, is effectively visible here through this tool in the footer, okay, so that you can see the date and time of the run, and you can click on the icon here to effectively download to effectively export the data. From the attribute table, you can also create widgets. Let's see it later, because it is a tool that is present also in the table of content toolbar. And you can also manage columns visibility by removing some of them or adding some of them accordingly. And more important, you can also synchronize the map with the records present in the attribute table. Okay, so that if you click on this, you will have effectively, as soon as you filter the attribute records in the attribute table, you will see the map filtered accordingly. Okay, that's a really useful tool. Let's open again the table of content. So we have seen now the attribute table options. Okay, so let's go through the other. You can delete the layer, the selected layer, and you can manage widgets. Okay, so widgets are, for example, the ones that you can see here. Okay, these blocks here are representing existing widgets already configured for this map. You have many options for this. When you click on this icon in the toolbar, you can choose the type of widget that you want to create. Okay, so you can create a chart, you can create a simple text widget, or a table widget, or a counter widget. Okay, here in this map we have already defined all widget type available, with the exclusion of the text one. But it is important to notice that the user experience here is completely driven by a wizard that help effectively the user on creating the widget itself. So in that case, a chart, you can choose the chart type supported, and you can configure it by selecting the attribute, X and Y attributes, basically the operation, and that is depending effectively on the selected attribute. So for example, let's do an example here, selecting the state name as an X attribute, and the length kilometer for Y attribute. As you can see, the operation drop down changes in its content by reporting also other operations available, like average, sum, standard deviation, the one that are currently supported. Okay, you can you can effectively choose the desired color for your chart. Okay, as well as customizing it through an interesting custom color setting tool that effectively allow you to classify your chart using a selected one of the available attribute, okay, that you can select here in the UI. We have already an example of one of the existing widgets, so we will see it using that widget. Okay, so As part of the charts configuration, we have also other advanced options. We have effectively many options available, and in the user guide available online, you can find all the information and the documentation related to all these properties and how charts and widgets can effectively be created. As part of, one of the other important tools that you can effectively use here as part of a widget's definition, in that case a chart, is the ability to effectively filter, okay, data that need to be presented in the chart. Okay, but let's go back and see what we have already defined here. So as soon as you create a widget tray here on the bottom right corner of the viewer is enabled, okay, so that all widgets are present here and are included here, and they can be activated or deactivated so that the user can visualize or hide them, okay, using available tools in the UI. Okay, so as you can see here, we have tabular widgets, charts widgets, and counter widgets. Then are automatically updated as soon as you pan or zoom the map. Okay, because all of them are there is an option effectively here in the UI that you can use to connect, okay, the widget to the map and have it updated as soon as you change the visualized extent and scale of the map itself. Okay. There are also interesting options available on each widget, so that you can for example maximize a widget full screen. Okay, you can pin it so that it is not possible to move the widget. Okay, so to have it fixed on the UI. Okay, and many other options that are options coming from the underlying library that we are using for managing charts, that is Plotly.js. Okay, so that you can zoom the chart and you can browse and navigate it directly in the widget. Okay, there is effectively a toolbar that allows the user to download the chart image as a PNG, zoom in or zoom out the chart itself, and restore the initial visualization and things like that. So going back to the table of content toolbar, you see here the same tool we have seen before for the attribute table. Okay, so that's effectively the same. As soon as you select a layer in TOC, you have the same options from table of content. Okay, so that you can export the data you need. Okay. Finally, let's collapse all widgets here to have a full visualization of our map here in the viewer. You can effectively use a compare tool that is available by default in MapStore. So let's go here and zooming to another layer that is effectively representing the roads in Manhattan. Okay, so activating the compare tool, you can effectively compare. As you can see, as soon as you move the bar here in the map, the roads layer disappear. So if you have different version of the same layer. So for example, the current one and the historic one, the historical one, okay, you can effectively see differences, okay, between them. There are two options here available. The default one, and it is of course configurable, is the compare tool, like this, but you can also use so basically the swipe, or you can also use the spyglass, okay, as you can see here, and you can of course configure the size, okay. Let's go back again to the swipe one with an higher zoom level, and that's it basically. Well, the table of content tool is effectively one of the most complex ones in the MapStore. As you can see, there are many options and tools that are connected with the table of content. Okay, so there is effectively a complex. It is effectively a complex tool. Okay, with many configuration options available that are effectively documented online. Okay, in the page, in the online page, I have mentioned last time. Okay, from the online documentation, you can click on plugins here on top right and search the TOC, okay, so that you have all the a visibility of all the configuration options that are available, all settings and samples that you can use for each configuration offered by the table of content, as you can see, okay, as well as for the other plugins, of course. Let's see now. Let's go back to the viewer again to see also other tools and other UI areas, interesting UI areas composing the MapStore map viewer. Okay, so closing the table of content. Again, on the left side of the screen, you have the background selector. Okay, so let's select states and zoom to the layer extent to see a different and more panoramic extent of the map. Okay, so at this background selector, as you can see, there are many backgrounds that can be configured for the map. Okay, so that you can, using it, switch between them. Okay, simply clicking on the card here, on the item. Okay, so if you have edit permission on a map, you have some controls here that allows us to add more backgrounds or delete them or configure the existing one in general. Okay, so the plus buttons effectively open the catalog tool where you can search for new backgrounds to be added in the map. You can edit properties like thumbnail, title, and more other options depending on the background layer type here. Okay, so for example, this is a WMS background, so that it is possible to configure the format, the style, and MapStore provides the ability to specify custom attributes that are included as query parameters, okay, of the OGC request, okay, get map request. So let's see, for example, how a user can add a new background. Okay, so for example, let's concentrate on this one. I'm going to remove it to add it again to the map. Okay, so opening the background selector, I can click on the plus button. Okay, here by default I have, a list of default supported backgrounds. Okay, so this is basically the list that is configured in the application configuration file. Okay, where you can define the most relevant backgrounds that you want to be always present in the catalog, to be included in the background selector tool if needed. Okay, but it is always possible for you to add a new source to the catalog. Okay, so let's use one of the already existing source, for example the WMS one that is pointing to the GeoServer demo instance. Okay, so you can search for the layer, for the background layer that you want to include in the background selector, in the background selector. So as soon as you type a text in the input box, you can see that the list in the catalog is automatically updated using the typed text as a filter. Okay. Here we have the natural earth layer. I want to add it as a background for my map, so I'm going to click on the plus button. Then I can choose the format I want to use for visualizing, for rendering effectively that layer. Let's choose for PNG8. Let's maintain the default background, and that's it. Okay, so as you can see, the background has been included by default. Then I can close the catalog tool. By default, MapStore doesn't include the thumbnail, so you need to include it manually. Okay, using this drag and drop section here. So let's close now the background selector to concentrate our tour on tools that are present on the right side of the user interface. Okay, as you can see, there are many components here. Let's describe all of them. Okay, so the side toolbar here is one of the main components representing the MapStore map viewer, since it is effectively providing all relevant tools the user can use for certain operation. Okay, the aim of the sidebar is effectively they want to collect all of relevant tools that allow the user to interact with the map, but not only, all together here in a toolbar. Okay, so as you can see from top to bottom, as you can see, there are many tools included by default. Okay, so the print tool to effectively print in the desired format the map. Okay, so there are many options available here, so that you can customize the title, description, the format, the coordinate reference system you want to use for the printing. Okay, the legend options and things like that. The resolutions of your final print, and of course there are also other options that are not default options. Okay, that you can configure, of course, to further customize your printing tool. So for example, the ability to choose the map scale directly in the printing preview here. Otherwise, as you can see, the printing preview changes when you pan or zoom the map behind it. Okay, and things like that. Okay, and so on. Then you have the about this map. If you remember, I have mentioned the details, the map details, when I have described the item options in the MapStore homepage. If you remember this one, okay, details can be configured from here, okay, so that WYSIWYG is opened and you can type your text, you can include your descriptive content, okay, for the map. That can be uploading images, formatting text, and things like that. There is a quite advanced editor available, so that you can effectively visualize the final result here in the about this map. Okay, so I mean you can effectively set up a descriptive content, okay, that is effectively describing and providing information of your map about contents and things like that. This detail panel can be rendered in different ways. So, for example, at the moment we have configured it to be opened as a side panel, but you can also configure it. As you can see, there are many options to configure the details sheet. Okay, so you can activate it as a model. Okay, you can have a preview here for your detail, and you can also decide to activate it at startup. When you save, okay, if you reload the map, for example, you will see the about this map panel opened here in the middle. You can maximize it, collapse it. So it is a really useful tool to represent and describe contents in your map. So let's go through the other tools available in the sidebar. So you can import contents. So supported contents, I mean, are basically referencing vector files, okay, or map context files, okay. So, for example, you can export a map definition and then import it using this tool, okay. So this is a tool that ensure a kind of portability, okay, of map contexts, okay. So you can export a map and re-import it if you want. But this tool can be used also to import in the map vector files, okay, like shape files, KML, KMZ, GeoJSON files, and things like that, okay. When I have a map like this, as I said, I can export it to re-import it in another MapStore instance, for example, or in another new map, for example, okay? I can do that using this tool, okay? There are two formats available, the native MapStore JSON format and the web map context format. Both are supported, okay? Then, when I have described the background selector, we have used quickly the catalog tool, okay? The catalog tool, this one, it is effectively the tool that allows you to connect external sources, okay, and import data in your map. The catalog tool can be opened also from the table of content here, okay, add layer. If you open it, if you click on it, you have the catalog tool opened so that you can choose a layer, the layer that need to be added to the map from the desired source, okay. So let's see together how it works. Okay, here, as you can see, we have a lot of sources already available. Okay, already configured. But you can configure your one by clicking on this, or editing an existing one by clicking on the pencil icon here. So that a configuration panel opens, and you can manage all the involved options. Okay, so let's create one source from scratch. Okay, clicking on the plus icon. As you can see, I can choose between different source type, okay, that are supported by MapStore. I can connect a CSW, WMS, WMTS, TMS, WFS, and 3D tiles also. Okay, so let's configure a WMS source, for example. The other source type are similar under certain extent. Let's see the WMS just to give you an example. So my demo WMS source, I have to specify the URL of my source. So for example, I can use the GeoSolutions GeoServer, for which I have to specify the WMS endpoint. Okay, basically that's it. Okay, it is not necessarily to specify other configuration options. I can save this. Okay, so defaults are used. Okay, so that now I can search for my layer. Okay, so for example, okay, as you can see, the results are paginated. Okay, so I can add the Spearfish Road layer. As you can see, when you click on the plus button, the layer is automatically added to the map, and the map itself is zoomed in, covering the extent of the layer. Okay, I have the possibility to refine the source options, because now we have maintained the default settings, but if I open the advanced setting panel, I have many possibilities here. Okay, so I can choose the format on which I want to visualize my layer. Okay, perform in that case my get map requests. Okay, these formats are the ones retrieved by the WMS get capabilities response. So effectively MapStore here ensure a kind of interoperability, since it is exposing formats effectively supported by the source. Okay, WMS source. So let's select PNG8. That is a lighter format. You can choose the tiling, the tile size. Okay, all of these are interesting options, configuration options, also for properly managing performances. Okay, for your map. And then other options available, of course. So as soon as you select the source on the service selector, start automatically a search and visualize the result. You have also some helpers here to understand about the other options that are effectively, some of them at least, specific to GeoServer, effectively, yes. So the localized style, that is using vendor options, so that it is possible to send in the request the the locale and be able in this way to have styles, layers, labels, I mean, localized according to the current locale, to the language used to visualize MapStore contents. The set visibility options so that the scale denominator configurations are used to properly visualize the layer according to the current scale, and this information is effectively present in the layer capabilities, WMS capabilities response, so that if you set this option, MapStore effectively looks at the capabilities to find if this scale information is available to use it. Okay. And other options, as you can see, including the ability to set up domain aliases. Okay, so that again, it is an option that allow you to manage performances. Okay, because as you probably know, common browsers allow you to put in parallel, okay, a limited number of requests, so that if you have your WMS source, in that case your GeoServer, exposed with the multiple domain names, you can use them, because that browser's limitation is related is per single domain, so you can define multiple aliases for your service and use all of them, so that MapStore manage this configuration accordingly to be able to perform more than the default requests to effectively load tile layers. Okay. So, well, as soon as you have configured the advanced settings, especially for what concern the format and the tile size, all layers loaded from this source will inherit basically these settings, and so by default layers are loaded with 256 per 256 tile sites. Now, as soon as I click on save, all layer will be added from this source with this tile site and with this format, while the default one is image/png. Okay. So let's save, and let's add again the same layer. Okay. So as you can see, from the layered setting, you have 512 and PNG 8 respectively as a tile size and format. This for the last layer we have added, while for the previous one we have PNG and another tile size. Well, let's open the panel. Since it is a really condensed training, let's proceed a little quickly on describing other relevant MapStore tools available in the WebGIS map viewer. So we have the measurement tool, okay, that can be used to draw measurements in the map, multiple measurements in the map effectively. Measurements are reported in the map itself, okay, and measurements can be exported in GeoJSON format or converted as an annotation or a vector layer in TOC. Also, the unit of measure can be managed through this drop down, and it is effectively customizable. The user can then can also delete the map directly from the viewer, can manage general settings. One of them is the one I mentioned before, where the user can change the general format for the identify tool. okay, and can change the UI language, choosing from one of the languages provided here in the UI, simply clicking on one of them. What you can see here are the default languages available by default, effectively, that are basically the ones supported, officially supported across different versions of the framework. Okay, but there are many other languages available in the application that are supported by the community. You can then choose the mode related to the display of the information, the identify information. Okay, if for example you want to have them presented in a side panel, okay, simply clicking on the map, or if you want instead to have them represented on a pop-up, simply hovering over the feature in the map, okay. Things like that. In 3D mode, there are also other options here that are effectively available and enabled only if you switch in 3D mode, okay? So that, as you can see, you can manage general settings proper of the 3D mode, like the sky atmosphere, ground atmosphere, fog, and things like that, that are effectively all properties, native properties of Cesium, that is the underlying mapping library that MapStore is using for the 3D. So let's maintain the viewer in 3D mode now, so that we can check the available properties we have for the share tool. Here in the viewer, when you open the share tool, you have more option than the ones available from the home page. Okay, since you have now the map available, you can also include in the share link additional query parameters representing the position of the map, so its center or zoom, okay, or in case of 2D you can also share the extent, okay, to effectively be able to share a map link where the user can load the map at the desired position. Okay. In particular, in 3D mode, you can see that there are specific query parameter that can be included in the share URL that are representing together the camera orientation. Okay. Since we are in 3D mode, of course there are options that are quite relevant to maintain the camera orientation and to be able to share it, like the heading, roll, pitch. Okay, all of these properties are not available in 2D. Effectively, if you switch back to the 2D mode, they are disappearing from the UI, and you instead the ability to, in addition, to share the map extent. Okay, effectively. Let's go through then the other tools. The button to reach the online documentation, as usual, that is really useful for many purposes. Then we have the tutorial to activate effectively a tutorial tool that highlight the most relevant section of the UI to get the user familiar with it. Okay. And then we have, of course, the about that provides general information about MapStore. It is, of course, customizable, but effectively the most important information that he provides are the build information, okay, and the update time. Other tools then are relatively common on all with all WebGIS. So from the navigation toolbar here, you can effectively navigate. I mean, you can browse the map okay, and interact with many options like zoom in, zoom out, go back in the history of the map browsing, switch to full screen mode, okay, and activate this option to effectively load the map at the initial extent and things like that, okay. Finally, we can spend some time on describing what are searching features, searching capabilities here. Since we have on top right a search bar where you can, search the desired location in various way. Okay, opening a drop down, you can see there are many options. So the search by location name, that is by default configured. It is effectively working against the Nominatim online service. You can search by coordinates. We are supporting in MapStore both decimal and aeronautical coordinates. Or you can effectively configure or who has editing functionalities in the map can effectively configure this tool by adding defining different locations or multiple locations here by defining bookmarks, okay, so that the user that can open the map and that can view the map can simply click on one of them to reach different locations. Well, let's go back now to the MapStore homepage where if you are authenticated as an administrator, you can effectively manage application context. Basically, the application context is a way MapStore offers to configure your custom WebGIS viewer in terms of map contents, available plugin, theme, and more. Okay, so this is an administrative section where the administrator can browse available context already defined and manage them. As you can see, each card, the look and feel, the UI is really similar to the map catalog, and the available options here for each item are basically the same. Okay, through this button you can create a new context. Okay, so let's go through the wizard that MapStore provides in order to create an application context and to see how it works. Okay, because it is a really powerful and useful tool. Okay, first of all, we have to choose the name of our context. Okay, so let's name it test context webinar. Okay, we can also choose the window title that will appear, okay, also in the browser tab, for example. Okay, and then next step, you can also switch as soon as the context is created. You can also switch from between wizard steps, simply clicking on each step here below in the UI. Okay. In the second step of the wizard, you can effectively configure which should be the default map contents, okay, for your context. So, for example, you have the table of content, and you have a minimal set of tools that allow you to configure your map. So you can import, for example, a map configuration previously defined, okay, or you can also export map content of an existing map context to be used for a new context, okay. You can use the catalog tool, of course, to configure layers for your map context. So for example, let's do a demonstration. Let's select a source, then let's select a few layers, a few sample layers. Okay, so this one, for example, the New York roads, for example. Okay, then I would like to organize my layer in groups, in different groups. So I can create a dedicated groups for my states layer, and that's it. So I can manage the opacity of my layers, I can manage the layer visibility, layer settings and things like that. I can choose which should be the default background for the context, with, as you can see, the ability to define multiple alternative backgrounds for my context, ready to be selected by the users, by the final users. I can choose which should be the coordinate reference system of my context, the default extent, scale, things like that. I can define annotations to my context if I want. Okay, the annotation tools is another interesting functionalities, provides other interesting functionalities of MapStore that allows you to define geometries in the map as an annotation for the map itself. Okay, then clicking on next, I can define the list of tools that I want to provide to final users accessing this context. So let's configure a few of them just to provide a demonstration. I can also choose to add all of them, okay, with the exception of few of them, okay, just to have a complete viewer, okay, or I can choose to include only a part if I want to have a really simple viewer with a minimum set of tools, okay. So for example, I would like to include in my application context only the table of content, okay. I wouldn't like to enable the style editor, but I would like to enable the swipe, okay. Then I want to include the measurement tool, the print tool, what else? The home button, and then the full screen. I would like also to include the identify and a few more options and tools related to the navigation toolbar, for example, like zoom in, zoom out, max extent, and things like that. And that's it, okay? So I can, of course, manage a few options here that effectively help the administrator to configure directly from the UI the configuration options of each plugin, and that's the real power of this, okay? Because you don't need to access directly configuration files, or you don't need to manage a list of configuration files directly on the file system. All these things are doable directly from the UI. So you are effectively the ability to configure your every tool here directly from the UI. So a link to the documentation, to the plugin documentation, of course, is bringing the user, the administrator, to the section of the online documentation related to the specific plugin. Okay, as you can see, there is a button on each plugin, and you have a text area to manage all the plugin configuration properties with some default that can be, as you can see in this case for the table of content, that can be customized. Okay, defaults can be customized because there is a specific configuration file for this, dedicated to this. So let's go finally to the last step of the application context wizard configuration, where you can configure the theme of the viewer. Okay, MapStore provides a list of default pre-cooked theme. Okay, the dark one is the only available from the official build. Okay, but following the online documentation, you are always able to create your custom theme, okay, and configure the application to include it in that list. Okay, you can configure a theme present in the list, or you can override switching on this property. You can override colors of the belonging to the MapStore default theme. Okay, so let's select the dark one, for example. As you can see, all the colors of the main theme properties are changing when selecting the theme from the list, so that you are always able to customize each of them. Okay, if you want, there are helpers that let you understand the meaning of each property. Okay, and there are functionalities available with these warnings here to effectively be able to know if there are conflicting colors, for example, that may prevent good readability of the UI. Okay, so that to ensure a proper visibility of all elements in the UI, it is you know that in these cases changing the color is something required. Okay, so let's maintain the current setting for the moment, clicking on save, so that we can find our newly created context. Okay, that's it, and we can of course choose we can configure the permission properties, making it visible to everyone, for example, because by default, as I said before, all resources or all new resources created are private or for the user that created them. Okay, so doing that, you ensure that, and then saving, you ensure that your context is publicly visible. You can of course choose to configure permission to make it visible or editable for other groups of users, for two specific groups of users, for example. Okay, so you can open the share tool here and copy the application context URL here to share it with your with everyone. Okay, so as you can see, when you load the context, it presents effectively all the configurations that you have provided in the wizard. Okay, so only the selected tools are available, only the in the sidebar, only the selected tool in the navigation tools in the navigation toolbars are available, and the same for the table of contents and things like that. The opacity settings, the table of content configuration in general. Okay, the layer present in it and the order of these layers. As you can see, also the overall map settings are the one that you have configured in the context. And another important thing, as you can see, each context can be recognized by its name in the URL. That is effectively custom, and it is the one that you have chosen, okay, during the application context configuration. So this can ensure that every context has a custom URL, okay, with a clear name, also in the window title to recognize it. Well, it is quite important now, as part of this training, to provide also a quick overview of MapStore dashboard functionalities. A dashboard is another kind of resource that can be managed with MapStore, whose purpose is to cover many use cases by providing the ability to have an overview to better visualize and analyze data of specific context, interact spatially and analytically with the data by creating connections between different widgets, aggregate data coming from different layers and perform statistical analysis on them. Let's open, for example, an existing dashboard to provide a tour of available main functionalities. Dashboards are usually composed by MapStore widgets. Effectively, as you can see, the same component we have seen before during the functionalities tour of the MapStore viewer. Therefore, the overall capabilities are mostly the same with some interesting additions. Of course, all capabilities are working again on top of the OGC standards in the same way of the map viewer, of course. You don't have a background map behind, as you can see. This means that you can potentially configure a dashboard containing only charts if you want. Okay, you have the ability, like in this sample dashboard, as you can see, to create and configure map widgets. Okay, inside the dashboard there is also another kind of widget not available in the viewer, that is the legend one here. Connected of course to a map widget to represent the legend of layers present in the map. As soon as you create a legend widget, MapStore required to connect the legend to a specific to one of the map widgets present in the dashboard. Okay, a sidebar here on the left gives you control on the editing capabilities, so that you can add new widgets, while other editing tools are available directly on each widget, as you can see here. This dashboard is a good example because we can see how widgets can be connected to each other according to the desired purpose, of course. So let's close the side panel. All widgets that are connected together can be identified through the colored bar on top here that can be activated and so highlighted through this control on the sidebar, so that the user can understand which widgets are connected together. Okay. For example, maps and table widgets are the only ones that can drive somehow other widgets. Okay. In this case, we have a good example because, as you can see, this map, for example, drive the data loading on the person line widget. This means that the spatial extent visualized in the widget is used as a spatial filter to filter data to be loaded in the chart. Okay. In the widget settings here, there is a tool in the toolbar within the wizard, the widgets configuration wizard, that is aimed to connect the widget to another widget. So if we deactivate this connection, we can see the widgets, the other widgets the chart1 is to be connected to. So that we can connect the map1, for example, and proceed with the wizard step and save the widget. So that when you effectively pan or zoom the map widget, you can see the chart1 that is updating its contents. Okay. So another kind of connection between widgets is the one between the table widget here and the others. The table widget can be configured as a parent table so that the quick filter here is provided for each attribute, and you can use the table to drive filter contents on other connected widgets. Okay. So for example, as you can see, when I change the quick filter here, you can see multiple widgets updating their content. As you can see here, the map widget is containing the same data set, okay, of the table, so that if I configure a filter here in the table, like for example this one, okay, the map widget can be connected to the table 1 so that its extent is updated automatically to cover the entire extent that contains all records in table. And if the map contains, like in this case, as I said, the same data set, the layer is also filtered. Okay. It is possible to effectively set up advanced connections so that filters can be applied also in cascade. For example, if you have a chart connected to a map that is also connected to a table, like in this case. Okay. This chart here is connected to this map that is connected to this table, so that when I effectively change my filter, okay, I can see all the three widgets updated together. Of course, we can mention that the size of each widget can be configured by the user, by the dashboard editor, okay, within this provided placement grid, okay, and of course, also for dashboards, other tools are provided, like the ability to export, import a dashboard, save it, delete it, share it online, and manage permissions, okay, as I said before. Well, we have reached finally the end of this session, so thank you all for attending. Unfortunately, there is no chance to, within this quick training, a really quick training indeed, to provide an overview of MapStore GeoStories. That is effectively another powerful and interesting storytelling tool of MapStore, providing the ability through the really advanced web editor, as you can see here, to create your own web page with inspiring and immersive stories. By combining text, interactive maps, as you can see, and other multimedia contents like images, videos, and other third-party contents. Through this tool, you can simply tell you stories on the web and then publish in the same way of the other resources, MapStore resources we have seen in the training, publish and share them with different groups of MapStore users to make them public to everyone around the world.